Welcome back to our channel, fellow General Hospital fans. Today is a truly beautiful day to dive deep into the latest thrilling updates from Port Charles. We have an incredibly intense and action-packed storyline to break down for you right now. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let us explore the shocking twists that are currently keeping everyone on the edge of their seats. Watching General Hospital for decades has given me a profound appreciation for the intricate dance of power, betrayal, and consequence that defines our beloved Port Charles. I have seen mob bosses rise and fall. I have witnessed the most cunning villains orchestrate masterstrokes of deception, and I have watched innocent lives get swept up in the terrifying undercurrents of criminal warfare. Yet, the current storyline involving Sonny, Sidwell, and the tragic fate of Pascal feels entirely unprecedented in its sheer ruthlessness. It is a storyline that grabs you by the heart and refuses to let go, pulling us into a dark, suffocating narrative where the lines between law enforcement and organized crime have been entirely obliterated. When we look at the escalating tensions, we have to ask ourselves how a man as seasoned as Sonny could find himself so deeply outmaneuvered. The answer lies in the terrifyingly modern and calculated methods of Jens Sidwell, a man who does not just play the game of chess, but actively burns the board while his opponents are still deciding on their next move. The catalyst for this current explosion of violence centers entirely around Pascal and his desperate, ultimately fatal decision to hand over the safe codes containing the highly classified documents regarding Marco. As a longtime viewer, I found myself deeply captivated by Pascal's psychological state leading up to this moment. Why would a man who knows the lethal reach of Jens Sidwell choose to trust Sonny Corinthos and Lucas Jones with such explosive information? The reality is that Pascal was a man backed into an impossible corner, suffocating under the weight of secrets that were practically a death sentence. He knew that the authorities could not protect him, a fact that becomes chillingly clear later in the narrative. Therefore, he turned to Sonny, the one man in Port Charles whose reputation for protecting his assets might have offered a glimmer of hope. Pascal's willingness to surrender these physical documents was an act of pure desperation, a final gamble for survival in a world that had already decided his fate. We must also deeply analyze why Lucas, a man who usually represents the pure moral center of his turbulent family, was so intimately involved in this dangerous transaction. Lucas has been living an absolute nightmare recently, having been maliciously framed by Cassius and Ross Cullum for the brutal murder of Marco Rios. For Lucas, securing these documents was not about mob business or power. It was about sheer survival and clearing his name from a crime he did not commit. I have watched Lucas grow up on this show, and seeing him thrust into the gritty, unforgiving world of back-alley deals and safe codes breaks my heart. He believed that by standing alongside Sonny to retrieve these files, he was finally taking control of his destiny and securing the proof needed to exonerate himself. It is this pure, desperate motivation that makes the subsequent tragedy at the dock so profoundly devastating to witness. However, what neither Sonny nor Lucas could have possibly anticipated was the absolute, terrifying genius of Sidwell. Sidwell is not a villain who reacts. He is a villain who anticipates, manipulates, and controls the narrative from the shadows. How did Sidwell know exactly what Pascal was planning? Because Sidwell understands the fundamental nature of fear and betrayal. He knew that Pascal would eventually crack under the pressure, and rather than simply killing him beforehand, Sidwell used Pascal as an unwitting pawn. By planting a microscopic tracking device directly inside the crucial folder containing the Marco documents, Sidwell turned Sonny's supposed victory into a lethal trap. This level of foresight reminds me of the classic, chilling brilliance of villains like Helena Cassadine or César Faison, but with a modern technological edge that makes Sidwell almost impossible to defeat. He weaponized Sonny's desire for the truth and Lucas's desperation for freedom. The sheer cinematic tension of the midnight rendezvous at the Port Charles docks is something that will stay with me for a very long time. The docks have always been a place of profound historical significance on General Hospital, serving as the backdrop for countless dramatic escapes, tragic farewells, and violent confrontations. Adding Laura to this mix elevated the stakes to an entirely new level. Laura, with her deep, complex history with Sonny and her unwavering dedication to protecting the vulnerable, was there to help smuggle Pascal out of the country. Seeing Laura standing in the thick, rolling fog of the harbor, working alongside Sonny to facilitate a safe passage, brought back so many memories of her past adventures. But this was no adventure. This was a meticulously laid trap. The heavy, oppressive atmosphere of the docks perfectly mirrored the impending doom that was rapidly closing in on our beloved characters. When the ambush finally occurred, it was a masterclass in chaotic, heart-pounding television. The sudden, terrifying eruption of gunfire shattering the quiet night was directed by Sidwell's elite team of highly trained assassins who materialized out of the shadows like phantoms. I found myself gripping the edge of my seat as the scene unfolded. It was not a fair fight, it was an execution. The assassins did not come to negotiate or to simply steal the documents back. They came to send a definitive, blood-soaked message that Jen Sidwell owns Port Charles. The choreography of the shootout, the flashes of muzzle fire illuminating the terrified faces of Sonny, Laura, and Lucas, created a visceral sense of panic. You could feel the absolute helplessness of the situation as Sonny, a man usually in complete control of his environment, realized that he had led his people directly into a slaughterhouse. The immediate and brutal murder of Pascal during the opening seconds of the firefight was a shocking reminder of the stakes involved. Pascal never even had a chance to realize the depth of his mistake before he was eliminated. His death serves as a chilling testament to the reality that in Sidwell's world, betrayal is met with instantaneous and permanent consequences. As a viewer, watching Pascal fall to the cold concrete of the docks was deeply unsettling. It extinguished the small flame of hope that he might actually escape and start a new life. More importantly, it demonstrated to Sonny that Sidwell's reach is absolute and that his assassins operate with a cold, mechanical precision that traditional mob enforcers simply do not possess. Pascal's blood on the docks is a stain that will haunt this storyline for months to come. But the true emotional devastation of this scene belongs entirely to Lucas Jones. As the bullets rained down, Lucas did not run for cover to save himself. Instead, driven by that intrinsic goodness and his desperate need to secure the truth, he threw his own body over the final remaining documents to protect them from the assassins. Watching Lucas get severely injured in this selfless, heroic act was one of the most agonizing moments I have experienced on this show in recent memory. Lucas, the dedicated doctor, the loving family man, bleeding out on the gritty harbor floor for the sake of mob evidence is a tragic irony that is hard to stomach. Will Lucas survive this horrific injury? The sheer terror of watching him fight for his life while clutching those blood-stained papers highlights the tragic collateral damage that always accompanies Sonny Corinthos' world. Lucas paid the ultimate physical price for a war he never wanted to be a part of. In the terrifying aftermath of the shootout, as the sirens wailed in the distance and the assassins vanished back into the night, Sonny's reaction was a complex study in guilt, rage, and sudden clarity. Sonny has spent his entire life trying to insulate his loved ones from the violence of his profession, yet here was Lucas, critically wounded because of a plan Sonny orchestrated. The psychological weight of this failure is going to press down on Sonny in ways we have not seen in years. He realizes that he was completely outplayed, that he walked right into Sidwell's snare with his eyes wide open. But beneath the overwhelming guilt is a terrifying, simmering fury. Sonny is never more dangerous than when his family is bleeding. This attack on Lucas and the brazen murder of Pascal right in front of him will undoubtedly ignite a new, catastrophic level of vengeance within the mob boss. However, the true narrative explosion comes from what Sonny discovers within those fiercely protected documents once the immediate danger has passed. As he sifts through the blood-spattered pages that Lucas nearly died to secure, Sonny realizes that these files are not just about Marco. They are far more dangerous than that. The documents contain a comprehensive, irrefutable list detailing a massive network of dirty cops operating right inside the Port Charles Police Department. This revelation completely shifts the paradigm of the entire show. We are no longer just dealing with a war between rival criminal factions. We are dealing with a systemic corruption that has rotted the very foundation of law and order in the city. How can anyone feel safe when the people sworn to protect them are secretly on Sidwell's payroll? The most chilling detail to emerge from this list of corrupt officers is a name that immediately sends shockwaves through the audience: Rookie Officer Joe Fitzpatrick. When Joe recently arrived in town, presenting himself as a fresh-faced addition to the force, many of us had our suspicions. He was too guarded, too conveniently placed in the middle of ongoing investigations. Now, the puzzle pieces snap together with terrifying clarity. Joe Fitzpatrick is not just a dirty cop. He is Sidwell's direct informant, the eyes and ears of a ruthless criminal empire operating from within the precinct walls. This explains how Sidwell has been able to stay 3 steps ahead of both the mob and the legitimate authorities. The betrayal of the badge by someone like Fitzpatrick adds a deeply personal layer of disgust to the storyline, especially for characters who respect the law. The implications of this compromised police force are absolutely staggering. Think about Dante Falconeri, a man who has dedicated his life to upholding the law with integrity. Dante is currently walking the halls of a precinct infested with Sidwell's loyalists, completely unaware that the rookie sitting at the desk next to him is a lethal traitor. This creates a suffocating atmosphere of paranoia for the viewers. Every time a police officer appears on screen, we will be forced to wonder if they are part of Sidwell's dark network. Sonny now holds the key to exposing this corruption, but acting on it is incredibly dangerous. If he hands the list over to the authorities, he risks giving it to the very people who are on it. This forces Sonny into an impossible position where he must become the judge, jury, and executioner in a war against the city's own police force. It is now abundantly clear that Jen Sidwell is orchestrating a master plan that goes far beyond simple extortion or territorial disputes. The tracker and the documents, the ambush at the docks, the infiltration of the PCPD, these are the actions of a man who is declaring an all-out war for the absolute soul of Port Charles. Sidwell wants total supremacy. He wants to control the criminals, the cops, the courts, and the streets. By neutralizing Pascal and nearly killing Lucas, Sidwell has boldly announced that there are no boundaries he will not cross and no sanctuaries he will respect. This is a new breed of villainy for the show, one that relies on systemic manipulation rather than just brute force, making him arguably the most dangerous antagonist Sonny has ever faced.